Is that time of the year where Dead by Daylight adds a new licensed chapter, and we've known about who it is since the anniversary event, but here he is, the Dark Lord Dracula from Castlevania. As sour as I may be at not getting Strahd, getting the most iconic vampire in gaming is fine by me, but the question is, if the chapter is as strong as the Belmont bloodline, or is it bloody awful? And, well, here's my opinion on it. As stated before in the introduction, this chapter is a Castlevania themed chapter. I've never played Castlevania, so from the insistence of my friends during the creation of this video, I have been playing my first Castlevania game being Rondo of Blood, and I suck at it. With that aside, the chapter comes with Dracula based off of his design in Symphony of the Night, which still has the hardest fit in my opinion. With him comes Trevor Belmont, Alucard as a legendary skin, and skins for Leon and Simon, however they are merely cosplay compared to Alucard. This update came with a bunch of killer and perk changes, but no new maps, as the next map comes out December with the original license. But with that all said and done, let's get into the content, starting with Dracula. Dracula descends upon Dead by Daylight. As stated before, he's based off of the Symphony of the Night, but he's voiced by Crispin Freeman, which is also the English voice actor for Alucard from Hellsing. Dracula is full of fun Easter eggs, be it his chase theme being a homage to Nothing to Lose from the original Castlevania, having voice lines especially for Alucard and Trevor Belmont. The fact that, like some killers, you can see if it's him, not by a TV or by a HUD, but instead his giant castle looming over the map. However, Dracula didn't pay royalties and is unable to bring his castle to licensed maps, except Vecna, because Vecna is cool. And finally, each of his forms are based on a transformation shown in a game. But what do I mean by transformations? Well, Dracula is another killer like Vecna, who has multiple different abilities wrapped into one power, but this time it's shapeshifting. Depending on the form, depends on what you can do. Each form has their strengths and weaknesses. The bats are your main source of movement around the map, and are quite rough in my opinion. They go 6 meters a second, and they're undetectable, but you can't see survivors, only their pools of blood and scratch marks, and the bat's noises are 48 meters, so survivors will hear you coming. But the part of the thing I can't get is the teleporting, as although it's 32 meter radius, it's still quite short, leaving you vulnerable in more open maps, and some windows just refusing to let you teleport. But you can still teleport to pallets, but depending on the playstyle you prefer on Dracula, will depend if pallets are a chew toy for the wolf or not. I'd say making the teleport radius 36 meters is fair, as survivors will have a couple of meters of hearing the bats before Dracula may or may not commit to the teleport, but that's just my personal opinion on it. And again, I've been sent to a lot of open maps recently. The wolf form is both the most fun and weirdest, as you're in third person and its ability is like 2 mini demo lunges. It even breaks pallets like him, but the thing that makes him different is the recharge time is pounces, 20 agonizing seconds. So to make up for it, he has scent orbs. Scent orbs increase your speed past 150%, but also remove a fifth of the timer more if you're running Killer Doll. And I'm still getting the hang of it, but it's my personal favorite. There are currently 20 realms in Dead by Daylight, and a werewolf problem. Oh! Finally, though, there's Drac himself. He's a 4.8 movement speed killer with a projectile akin to pyramid heads, but its hitbox is quite strange. From how it was explained to me and some messing around, the flame can go through most objects, if they even have a minimal visible lines, or are in open, like going up slanted rocks that some maps have. Shack can be a little finicky due to the boards, but you can still get it inside there, but it will take some practice to get it perfect every time. But with the results are worth it. Other than that, he's just a regular M1 if you're like me and can't hit with his power. Overall, I personally enjoy the new direction they're taking with killers, although having one main power with a strong foundation, like Huntress or Deathslinger, is always good. Killers with multiple tools to fit two different players' styles is an interesting way to make a killer. Wolf satisfies people who enjoy killers like Wesker or Demo, while Dracula is more for the range players, or Nemesis players I guess, and I am a part of the Wolf party personally. I forgot to add that Alucard's shield is one of the funniest add-ons in the game, and I'm so fucking happy they didn't change it. Like, it's if Ink Ribbon on Nemesis had, instead of 2 zombies, it's an entire goddamn horde, and it keeps spawning in front of you. Like, they need to make more add-ons like this. I don't care if it's broken, it's fucking funny. Trevor is the new survivor in Dead by Daylight, but for footage I want to flash my expensive skin. Just like the previous survivors, they both have voice lines, although I can't find anything concrete. However, from the wiki it says Alex Windham voices Alucard, and Andrew Wilden Dennis voices Trevor, and both of them do a fantastic job at it. But what about the perks? I'll start with Exhaustion, which is a unique and fun perk. When you're holding an item and stun the killer with a pallet, your item is upgraded as long as it can and charges to 25%. Hypothetically, you could make an item go from brown rarity to purple, or a useless green key turn into a purple and let you escape. It's super niche, but it's still a fun perk. Eyes of Belmont are the survivor equivalent of Lethal Pursuer, where lethal is used to find survivors at the start of the game and adds 2 seconds. Eyes of Belmont reveals the killer after gen completion for 3 seconds, and plus 2 seconds on killer aura reading, which you won't get too much use naturally, but will be useful on builds that run stuff like Object or Troubleshooter, which is a very underrated perk in my opinion. And finally, Moment of Glory. A perk that I really love the concept for, but I feel like it takes way too long to proc, and after unlocking or rummaging in 2 chests, you obtain the Broken Status effect for a minute when injured, and you'll be fully healed. However, it deactivates if you get downed, either while injured or fully healed. I think it can be a strong perk, but I think it needs just one small change. The change is having it activate when injured. Keep in mind, without a survivor using Appraisal or bringing chest offerings, or the killer bringing Hoarder, Human Greed, and the less chest offering, you will only be able to proc it once. So if the killer you face is an insta-down killer, or has exposure in the build, you'll never get it, which hinders the perk from having any viability. It's still a fun perk though, but it just needs one small change. Overall, the love and care for Castlevania franchise is oozing from Trevor and his skins. Each one has their own personality and are iconic characters, while Alucard is his own person, just like the other legendary skins like James Sunderland, Chris Redfield, and the newly added Rain Carradine. And although it's a shame Richter hasn't made his appearance as of yet, I know Konami will see the big bucks and will eventually add more Belmonts, and possibly other vampire hunters in the Castlevania franchise. Just like any live service game, Dead by Daylight has gotten balance changes, and mostly just killer tweaks except for the massive reduction on timer perks and repaired progress perks for Survivor. A good amount of these are memey in nature, like Diversion, Mirrored Illusion, and Deception. The one with the most impact in my opinion is Dance With Me for stealthy survivors, but we will have to see how these tweaks will affect Survivor builds, which I severely doubt. What will definitely affect both Survivor and Killer is the 10-second increase on hook stages. No longer will the pain of being 1 second away from being saved, only to go into second stage mid-save, be as felt across the realm, and overall, it's a fine change, and I see no real problems with it, and balances out hooks respawning if anything. The only thing I feel negative about this change is hiding prestige by default. I think that should be a toggleable option, as some people do want to flex their higher ranked characters, and I think if someone put the time in to show it, they should be able to do it, but that's just my opinion. Anyways, the killer tweaks, all of them are quality of life changes more than anything. First being Nemesis. where they made him getting the second stage with his whip require 1 less point, and the hindered penalty is now 2 seconds, which by God helps him in the early game. A lot like Myers, Nemesis probably has my least favorite startup out of every killer. The power feels like a slog until you get to tier 2, and now it's easier with a little help from Marvin's Blood. Put the killer in a spot where I don't feel like crying when I can't get him past T1. Doctor got a buff, and I didn't know I needed it until now. 15-second decrease on static blast, now 45 seconds. You go 3 times faster when charging, and if the blast hits no survivors, it's now 30 seconds instead of the 45. Genuinely, even though Doctor isn't at top tier, I think the past 2 changes he's gotten has brought him to a point where I think he's healthy, diverse, and fun to play. I might finally play him a bit more if I can't go for his annoying ass laugh. A killer that I was extremely hyped about was Dredge, as he's one of my favorite killers in Dead by Daylight, and the quality of life changes they did really made up for it. Decreasing the volume was one of my favorites, as selfie killers are my personal favorite playstyle, and although he's stealth, he's also loud as shit. The rest of the changes are just buffs to daytime teleportation, reduction on locker breaking while inside, and nightfall bonuses on injured survivors, which all adds up. I'm not sure where Dredge is ranked, but it's a healthy changes for the creature. And finally, the Knight. I didn't really brush up upon the Knight in the changes last time, as I personally don't play the Knight. I don't massively enjoy his playstyle. However, making his guards each have cooldowns and specializing in something, and also being able to summon a guard while one is already doing a hunt, makes you wonder why they didn't change his power sooner. It's way more interactive and feels more rewarding, like you're putting pawns on a board. Move over, chess merchant, the Knight's coming for your job. I forgot to add that Midwich actually got changed a little in this update, just with some more stuff in the line, so Billies can't chainsaw right through and Huntresses can't cross-map you between them. It's interesting. I don't really dislike it. It's well rated in my opinion. I don't really hate it either. They did touch around with generator spawns, so it's not as confusing for new players, which I do like. And they actually removed the breakable walls in the bathrooms. So yeah, it's not the craziest thing they've done, but it's still very interesting. Rest in peace to that one AFK only video. That's still so fucking funny. There's changes overall. I have no gripes or really issues with the changes, except for the hiding of Prestige, and how Blastmine will be a little more obnoxious, but that's about it. Now, for the final topic of the video. Just like every update with new killer perks, I gotta try it out on my favorite killer and see how it feels on them. This time, we've got some more fun ones, so let's get into it. Dominance feels like Hex Undying's younger brother, but it also affects chests. I went with a full Hex build trying to protect the main perk in the build, Ruin, and I actually got some decent value out of it. Of course, it will vary between matches due to Hex spawns, the survivors knowing where they spawn, etc. But overall, it's pretty meh. Hex Wretched Fate is an interesting perk. I like the idea of it, however the power it gives for you just feels underwhelming. It's a bit like Plaything, but that works on all survivors and has way better effect, while this only makes gens 33% slower. I think it needs to go into a crazy numbers, 50-60% reduction, while having the effect of Noed, where the aura range increases, but for instead of seconds, it's each gen completed. This will incentivize the obsession to go look while you pressure the non-obsessions into chase, so the gens just don't get completed. I did both Pentimento and Playframe with this build with a mix of Deadlock, and used Wraith's natural speed when cloaked to get as much value as I could, and even though it's a meh perk, I think it depends on how much pressure you can apply, and what you have supporting it. It will make Wretched Fate shine, but by itself it's just underwhelming. Human Greed feels like a meme perk, like this should have been added before Weave Attunement. Having only 8 meters of aura reading, unlike Weave's 12, but honestly, when I saw this perk was being made, I had to try them together, so I put them all together and the results were honestly as I expected. Even on a decently large map, the game, you just still get somewhat decent value, but it just depends on if you use Hoarder or if the survivors are chest goblins, but it's also a bad thing since the power deactivates when chests are open. Honestly, if you're desperate for aura reading or tracking, base game perks like Whispers or Bitter will likely give you more value than this perk. Overall, nothing stands out for the Bong Boy, but hey, not every perk will fit every killer's playstyle. But it's still fun to mix and match because who knows, You might find that one perk combo that you just really enjoy running on every killer. This is a strong chapter coming out right after Laura Cross mid-chapter, and the PC may be having some lobby stutter, and although we will not be getting any DLC until the end of the year, I think that Trevor, Dracula, and the changes in in-game events coming in between will be enough to sink the casual player's teeth into. Thank you for watching this video. I enjoy coming back every once in a while to talk about one of my obsessions that isn't just another Persona video, but if you're interested in my content, heads up, Dead by Daylight is only one topic that I talk about, but go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you want. Anyways, I'm going to go back and work on that Kakarot video. Goodbye.